They thought humans were primitive dreamers, until ancient walls whispered a truth older than any alien empire. Across the vastness of the Andromedan cluster, the Valerians had long watched humanity with quiet amusement. To them, Earth was a blue marble of chaos, its inhabitants, clumsy bipeds with fragile bodies and louder emotions. The Valorians were ancient travelers, their civilizations older than most stars in the Milky Way. They had charted thousands of worlds, catalogued thousands of species, and studied the patterns of intelligence from seed to extinction. When they discovered Earth, their verdict was swift, primitive, creative, emotional, no more than children, painting dreams on stone. The humans fascinated them for one reason only: their art. From space, the Valorians had intercepted visual data, the swirling canvases of Van Gogh, the cryptic strokes of Da Vinci, the surrealism of Dali. They were strange, beautiful, even, but meaningless, by their standards. No equations, no dimensional symmetries, no messages encoded in higher logic. Just emotion. To the Valerians, emotion was the noise of lesser minds. So, when the Galactic Archive labeled humanity primitive artists of Sector 4B, the title was almost a mockery. It placed humans in the same category as the Trellian moths, who painted their wings to attract mates, and the swearing crystals, whose growth patterns resembled fractal symphonies. The humans were nothing special except for their relentless, chaotic creativity. But that changed the day the Valorians discovered the caves. On a routine archaeological survey, more of an intellectual indulgence than a Valorian explorer named Ixar descended into a deep cavern on Earth. It was called Lascaux, a place humans had fenced off long ago, guarding it like a relic. Ixar entered not with reverence, but curiosity. Inside, the air was thick with age. His light cast shimmering halos across walls painted with animals: bison, horses, deer dancing in motion. At first, Ixar saw nothing remarkable. He scanned pigments, carbon-dated the minerals, catalogued brushstrokes. Everything confirmed what he expected: simple, pre-technological expression. But then his scanner picked up something that didn't belong. Behind the layers of ochre and charcoal were geometric imprints barely visible, like echoes behind the animals. They weren't random, they were consistent, rhythmic, almost coded. Ixo paused, his neural interface humming. He analyzed further. The shapes corresponded to lunar cycles, then to seasons, then to stellar alignments. The humans, those primitive painters, had recorded astronomical data inside their art, not myths, not dreams, data. As realization dawned, Ixar's mind trembled. Humanity, long before their first city, long before writing, had been observing the cosmos and documenting it through symbols of art that encoded history, migration, time itself. The walls of the cave weren't primitive, they were the first archive. Ixar stood in silence, his body trembling in the glow of ancient firelight echoes. For the first time in 1,000 cycles, a Valorian whispered words of awe. They were watching the stars, before they even knew what stars were. Ixar stayed in that cavern far longer than protocol allowed. The glow of his scanning drones bathed the painted walls in pale gold, turning every ancient stroke into something alive. The animals seemed to move under the light, running, leaping, hunting, but now he saw them differently. Each line was deliberate, each color shift intentional. The art was not random expression, it was a language. He uploaded his findings to the Valorian Science Council with a simple report. Evidence of structured astronomical mapping found beneath Lascaux cave paintings. Possible proto-historical data encoding. The response came within hours, a flurry of disbelief. Primitive species cannot encode data before written language. Check your instruments. Recalibrate your sensors. But Ixar was certain. The pigments themselves were laid in layers that corresponded with the phases of the moon. He used deep spectrum analysis and found that some mineral deposits reflected light differently under specific wavelengths, forming sequences when illuminated at the correct lunar angles. When he simulated these cycles, the patterns revealed star positions. Not from the modern sky, but from 17,000 years ago. That meant the artists who painted those walls had not only observed the heavens, they had recorded the shifting of constellations through time. When Ixar transmitted his data publicly, the galaxy noticed. Across the Andromedan network, debates ignited. The Cathari linguists argued that it was coincidence. The Threxian theorists accused Ixar of cultural bias. But the elder observers, those who remembered civilizations older than light itself, were silent. Silence, in their kind, meant only one thing: interest. Soon a delegation of Valerian scholars descended upon Earth. They came not as conquerors, but as archaeologists of humility. They combed through caves from France to Indonesia, from Spain to Namibia, searching for more primitive art, and everywhere they looked, they found patterns, spirals that mapped planetary orbits, handprints arranged in Fibonacci ratios, animal clusters that mirrored constellations now long shifted. It wasn't coincidence, it was design. One day, deep inside a submerged cavern in Indonesia, the research team found a chamber sealed off by calcified limestone. Behind it, hidden from human and alien eyes alike, was something no one had expected, a massive mural unlike any other. It wasn't painted with animal figures or crude outlines. It was made of glowing mineral veins, carefully carved into the rock. When Ixar's team activated their scanners, the chamber erupted in light, a tapestry of stars projected across the walls. At the center of it all, a spiral, a perfect model of the Milky Way. The scientists froze. The painting showed not just Earth's night sky but the entire galactic plane. It was so accurate that the Valerian computers had to recalibrate their own stellar maps to match it, and at the far edge of the spiral, there was a glowing mark, a small blue circle. Earth. The humans had placed themselves there, not at the center, not in glory but at the edge of the galaxy, quietly observing. For the first time, Ixo's colleagues didn't laugh. They knelt. These weren't cave painters, Ixo whispered. They were the first astronomers, the first historians of the cosmos. The chamber lights dimmed, leaving only the faint luminescence of the mineral mural. The air shimmered with quiet reverence. Every scholar, every drone, every instrument stood still, frozen before a mystery older than civilization itself. But Ixo wasn't satisfied. He had learned long ago that truth hides behind curiosity. He adjusted the scanner's sensitivity, lowering it beneath the visible spectrum, deep into the mineral structure of the wall. The device hummed. Its screen flickered. Then something shifted. Beneath the painting of the galaxy, faint lines appeared, thin, almost invisible filaments of different composition. Not random etching, not geological, deliberate. Overlay the secondary map, Ixo ordered. The projection shifted. The glowing Milky Way dimmed, revealing a second image beneath it, a pattern of repeating geometric forms, organized in triangular clusters. To the untrained eye, it was nonsense. But Ixo recognized it instantly. It was a signal format, one used by advanced species to broadcast across deep space, a pattern of prime numbers and geometric harmonics. The same kind the Valorians themselves had used when they first tried to contact other galaxies. Ixar felt the cold grip of realization. They knew, he whispered. The humans knew the mathematics of interstellar communication. His assistant, Lurker, trembled. But that's impossible. They hadn't even discovered metallurgy. Or perhaps, Ixar said slowly, they didn't discover it at all. They remembered it. They began analyzing the wall's deeper strata, peeling away eons of mineral buildup layer by layer. What they found next silenced even the most skeptical among them. Behind the main mural, behind the layers of mineral carvings, was a hollow cavity. Inside it, embedded in the stone, rested a small, smooth object. It was not natural. The object was oval, metallic, and humming faintly with residual quantum energy. The Valorian sensors identified it immediately. It was a data core. But by all readings it had been buried for more than 30,000 years. No human technology from that era could have created such precision. They extracted it carefully, placing it in a sealed containment field. The object pulsed once, as if sensing awareness. Then, slowly, light patterns began to flow across its surface, shifting in rhythm to the constellations painted on the wall. The alien scientists fell silent. The core was responding to the mural itself, as if it recognized it, as if both were parts of the same ancient code. Translate, Ixo ordered. The AI began decoding the light pulses. Slowly, words, no concepts emerged. Not sound, not language, but impressions burned into the air. We remember the visitors. They came from the sky of fire and stars. We painted their stories so we would not forget. Lurker stumbled back. Visitors? You mean us? Ixo's eyes gleamed. No, something else. Long before us. They realized then that the cave was not merely an archive, it was a memorial. The first humans, in their innocence, had met beings from the stars, thousands of years before recorded civilization, and instead of worshipping them or fearing them, they documented them. As the metallic artifact pulsed again, one more phrase appeared, sharper, more deliberate than before. They promised to return when the stars align. The room filled with an uneasy stillness. Outside, through the distant veil of atmosphere, the Earth's night sky glittered. And above, far beyond human sight, something stirred, an ancient signal echoing faintly across the galaxy. For 3 sleepless rotations, Ixa's team analyzed the message. The data core had gone dormant after transmitting the final phrase they promised to return when the stars align. It refused to emit another pulse, as if its purpose had been fulfilled. But for Ixa, the true work had only begun. He stood before a vast holosphere that mapped the entire Milky Way, rotating slowly in violet light. The cave's star painting had been scanned, digitized, and overlaid with their modern stellar cartography. When the 2 maps synchronized, a shiver ran down Ixor's spines. The constellations matched. Not perfectly, they had shifted slightly over millennia due to cosmic drift, but the alignment was unmistakable. Whoever created the cave paintings had known the layout of the stars as seen from space, not from Earth's surface. How could humans have drawn this from the ground? Lurker murmured. Ixa didn't answer. His hands moved through the hologram, adjusting the positions until the same alignment appeared as it must have looked 30,000 years ago. At the center of the pattern, 7 stars formed a spiral. Not random, a coordinate cluster. He input the coordinates. The system processed, triangulated, and then a pulse of light appeared on the map. A real signal. Weak, ancient, but unmistakably artificial. Origin, a derelict system near the edge of the Orion Arm. The same frequency encoded in the cave artifact was now broadcasting across the void, faint but active. Ixa stared, his breathing shallow. The message wasn't a prophecy, he whispered. It was a countdown. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. Some scholars believed it was a natural echo of the artifact, others that it was a trap, a lure from the long-lost visitors. But Ixo felt something deeper. The humans hadn't created the painting for themselves. They had made it for whoever would come after. He convened with the Galactic Historical Council via holotransmission. The chamber was filled with elder voices, beings whose memories spanned centuries. They regarded him with cold skepticism. Professor Ixo once said, "You are suggesting that primitive humans not only met extraterrestrial travelers, but preserved their coordinates for a cosmic event tens of millennia in the future." "Yes," Ixo said firmly. "And that event is occurring now." A pause followed, long and heavy. Zen, reluctantly, they approved an expedition. If the signal was genuine, it could rewrite the known history of the galaxy. The next cycle, the Eclipsera, a sleek silver research vessel, launched from orbit above Earth. Ixer and Lurker stood on the observation deck, watching the planet recede, the cradle of the species they had once dismissed as naive dreamers. Beneath them, Earth's lights flickered like embers of an ancient fire. Ixer whispered, "Maybe they weren't painting gods, maybe they were painting teachers." As the Eclipsera jumped into hyperspace, the ship's AI intercepted a faint transmission from the Orion sector. It was the same rhythmic pulse as the artifact, but now, the message contained a reply. Translated loosely, it said, "We see your light again." The Keepers remembered. The time has come. Lurker's eyes widened. "It's answering us." Ixer leaned forward, heart pounding. "No," he said softly. "It's answering them, the humans." And as the ship vanished into the hyperstream, the stars behind them shifted, lining perfectly with the ancient painting carved by human hands long before civilization began. The Eclipsera emerged from hyperspace in a silent storm of blue light. The Orion sector stretched before them, a graveyard of dead stars, shattered moons, and drifting metallic ruins. Sensors flickered with ghost readings. Radiation levels were erratic, patterns repeating like echoes of something that once lived but refused to die. Lurker adjusted the scanners. "I'm detecting metallic structures, Professor. Vast ones." There, orbiting the remains of a gas giant, Ixer leaned closer to the console. The display showed fragments forming a rough ring, broken megastructures. The scale was terrifying. Each piece was the size of a small moon. Their surfaces carved with geometric designs eerily similar to the human cave paintings. "This isn't natural," Ixer murmured. "This is architecture on a stellar scale." They guided the ship toward the debris field. As the Eclipsera glided closer, the hull's AI began translating the residual energy signatures into visuals. Patterns danced across the holodisplay, repeating spirals, fractals, wave. Lurker's voice trembled. "Professor, those patterns, they matched the code embedded in the human artifact." The realization struck them both. The ancient object from Earth wasn't just a message, it was a key. When they activated the artifact's harmonic resonance aboard the ship, the dead structures began to respond. Faint pulses of light rippled through the ruins, slow at first, then synchronized into deliberate rhythm. One by one, dormant mechanisms awoke. From the center of the field, a massive structure unfolded, a colossal polyhedron rotating slowly, its faces glowing with deep, blue light. It was as if the ruins themselves were rearranging into coherence, resurrecting a shape that had waited eons to be recognized. And then came the voice. Not in sound, but in the mind, a vibration that every crew member felt behind their eyes, ancient and cold yet gentle. The keepers have come. The memory endures. The message unfolded as images in their minds, figures of light descending to early Earth, guiding primitive humans not as rulers, but as teachers, showing them how to see, to map the stars, to mark time, to remember through art. The visitors were not conquerors, they were archivists, a civilization that had traveled across galaxies to preserve the memories of dying worlds. When their empire collapsed, they left traces, seeds of remembrance in species capable of storytelling. Ixer fell silent. The entire crew was entranced, overwhelmed by the enormity of it. The cave paintings, he whispered, weren't simple art, they were memory storage, a message encoded in culture, waiting for rediscovery. The voice continued, fragmented, fading. Our task is done. The flame passes to the next keepers, to the children of memory, to humans. The polyhedron's light dimmed. The ruins began to drift again, lifeless and still. The transmission ceased. Lurker whispered, so they weren't gods, not even guardians, just rememberers. Ixer nodded slowly, and humanity became their legacy. He turned toward the viewing window. Beyond the ruins, the Orion Nebula shimmered, a vast cloud of color and dust, shaped faintly like an eye watching from eternity. But even as the Eclipser prepared to leave, something flickered at the edge of their sensors, a small metallic signal, moving fast, a probe. It was heading toward Earth. Ixer's eyes widened. They're returning. The Eclipser raced the signal back toward Earth. The probe, small, sleek, and impossibly old, moved with intelligence. It wasn't broadcasting a threat, but a purpose. Its trajectory was precise, aimed not at a city, not at a continent, but at a remote mountain range where human satellites had never truly mapped the depths beneath the rock. Ixer stood in the command bay, eyes locked on the projection. That's the Himalaya region, he said quietly. Right below where the first humans painted the stars. The crew exchanged glances. It was the same region where they had found the original cave, the birthplace of the message. As they descended into Earth's orbit, human communication arrays immediately picked up the anomaly. Confusion rippled through their network, scientists scrambling, military channels buzzing. No one understood what the object was, but for Ixer it was all beginning to make sense. The cave painting had been a map, not just a message. The data core had been a key. The probe was the door. They landed near the excavation site, guided by a human archaeology team that had barely begun to comprehend what they were standing on. Beneath the rock, the Valorian scanners detected a hollow, an artificial chamber sealed with a metallic alloy that matched the visitors' ruins in Orion. When the probe entered the chamber, the walls lit up instantly, alive with symbols. A deep hum filled the air, low, resonant, ancient recording. Lurker said, her voice trembling. The chamber began projecting images directly into their minds. They saw early humans gathered around towering figures of light archivists who communicated not through words but through shared thought. The beings showed them how to preserve memory through symbols, through pigments, through story. One final vision followed, the visitors departing, leaving a promise imprinted in the minds of the first storytellers. One day, when your kind paints not on walls but on the sky, we will return to see what you've become. The lights in the chamber dimmed. Then, something extraordinary happened. The central structure, the probe, split open, revealing a crystalline orb. Inside it, faint shapes flickered, fractal images of galaxies, histories, and songs. It was a memory seed, a condensed archive of countless civilizations that had lived and died before humanity's dawn. Ixor fell to his knees, awed. They preserved everything, every voice, every dream, and they trusted humans to continue the story. The orb pulsed once, and a projection of Earth appeared above it, not as it was, but as it could become. Cities floating among the stars, art woven into nebulae, memory carried across galaxies like cosmic music. The vision was not a warning, it was an invitation. The chamber spoke one final time. We were not the first. You will not be the last. Carry the flame. Outside, the night sky shimmered, satellites glowed brighter than ever, and from orbit, the constellations subtly shifted, lining just as the cave painting had shown. The stars seemed to whisper, as though acknowledging that the promise had been kept. Lurker turned to Ixer, her voice soft. What will you tell your council? He smiled faintly, eyes fixed on the stars. That the humans were never primitive, they were chosen to remember. As the Eclipser ascended once more into the heavens, Earth's surface glimmered below like an ancient painting come alive, its brushstrokes made of light, its story written not in stone, but in the endless canvas of the universe.